I never imagined that calling a furnace repair technician on a freezing February morning would lead me to discover that my brother had been living in my basement for 4 years. But that's exactly what happened. Let me tell you how a broken heater turned my entire world upside down. My name is Margaret Hoffman, and at 63 years old, I thought I had already seen everything life could throw at me. I had been married to my husband Daniel for nearly 38 years. We raised two wonderful children, our daughter Emma, who now lives in Vancouver, and our son Marcus, who settled in Calgary. After decades working as an accountant in Winnipeg, I had finally reached a quiet stage of life. Daniel and I lived in a comfortable two-story home in River Heights, the same house we had bought back in 1989. Life was calm, predictable, exactly the way I liked it, until one morning in February 2023. The temperature had dropped to negative 35 degrees Celsius overnight, and of course, that was the exact moment our furnace decided to stop working. Daniel had left 3 days earlier to visit Emma in Vancouver. She had just had a baby, and he wanted to help out for a while. So I was alone in the house, working from home like I had been doing since the pandemic. By 9 a.m., the house was getting painfully cold, so I called Morrison Heating and Cooling. They promised to send a technician by noon. Right on time, a young man named Kyle arrived. He looked to be in his late 20s, friendly, polite, with the unmistakable, relaxed accent of someone who had grown up in Manitoba. "Mrs. Hoffman," he said, brushing snow off his boots near the door, "I'm here about your furnace." "Thank goodness," I said. "It's getting cold in here fast." I showed him the way to the basement. "The furnace room is straight ahead. You can't miss it." Kyle grabbed his toolbox and headed downstairs, while I returned to my home office to finish a tax return for one of my clients. About 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a text message from an unknown number. "Mrs. Hoffman, this is Kyle. Can you come down here for a second? There's something you need to see." I frowned. Why wouldn't he just call up the stairs? I typed back, "What's wrong? Is the furnace beyond repair?" The typing dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, another message came through. "It's not about the furnace. There's a door down here behind your storage shelves. It has 4 heavy locks on it from the outside. Did you know about this?" I stared at the phone. A door? We had lived in that house for 34 years. I knew every inch of it. There was no door behind the storage shelves. I typed back quickly. "There's no door down there. You must be mistaken." His response came immediately. "Ma'am, I'm looking right at it, and I think I hear something inside. Maybe breathing or pipes settling. I'm not sure, but it's strange. You should come down here." My heart began pounding. I stood up so quickly my chair rolled into the wall. Then I rushed down the basement stairs. Kyle was standing near the far wall where we kept metal shelving units stacked with Christmas decorations, old tax files, and craft supplies. One of the shelves had been pulled away from the wall. "I had to move this to check the ductwork," he explained. That's when I saw it. And there it was, a wooden door painted the same dull gray as the basement walls so perfectly that it blended in. But what made my stomach drop were the locks, 4 heavy padlocks, all attached on the outside, all locked. "I've never seen this before," I whispered. "You didn't install it?" Kyle asked. "No, we've never done renovations down here." I stepped closer, touching the door with trembling fingers. It was solid wood. And then I heard it too, a faint sound, movement, like someone shifting their weight on the other side. "Hello?" I called softly. "Is someone there?" Silence, but it was the kind of silence that felt like someone was holding their breath. Kyle pulled out his phone. "Mrs. Hoffman, I think we should call the police." "Wait," I said. My mind was racing. Who could possibly be behind that door? And then a thought struck me like lightning. My husband. Daniel handled all the storage down here. Daniel always insisted I didn't need to move the shelves. Daniel spent more time in this basement than I did. "Let me call my husband first," I said. Kyle looked uncertain. "If someone's trapped in there—" "Just 1 minute," I insisted. My hands were shaking as I dialed Daniel's number. He answered on the fourth ring. "Margaret, is everything okay?" I could hear our granddaughter crying somewhere in the background. "Daniel," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "there's a door in our basement with 4 locks on it. Do you know anything about this?" The line went silent. Completely silent. Then I realized he had moved somewhere private. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Cold. Careful. "Margaret, don't open that door." My stomach dropped. "Daniel, what's going on? Who's in there?" I said, "Don't open it." "Daniel, there is someone locked in our basement." Another long pause. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. 4 years. My knees nearly gave out. 4 years? "Please," he said quietly, "just wait until I get home." I ended the call. Then I turned to Kyle. "Call the police." 2 police cars arrived within 15 minutes. They cut through the locks one by one. And when the final lock fell away, the door slowly opened. Inside the small room sat a man on a cot. Thin, pale, hair completely gray. But the moment I saw his face, my world collapsed. Thomas? It was my brother Thomas. The brother my husband told me had died 4 years ago. The brother I had mourned at a funeral. He looked up at me with exhausted eyes. "Margie," he whispered, "you found me." Thomas had been imprisoned in that room for 4 years. My husband had drugged him when he came asking for financial help during a divorce, then locked him in a hidden room in our basement. Every day he brought him food, threatened to kill me if he made noise, convinced him the world believed he was dead. Daniel was arrested at the Winnipeg airport that night when his flight landed. The trial shocked the entire country. He had planned everything for years. The room, the ventilation system, the supplies, all of it. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Thomas spent months recovering, physically, emotionally, but he survived. And today, 3 years later, he sits across from me in a cafe in Osborne Village, drinking coffee and working on the book he's writing about what happened. Sometimes we talk about those years, but mostly we talk about normal things: hockey, family, life. Because after everything, normal conversations feel like a miracle. The truth is, evil doesn't always look like a stranger. Sometimes it looks like the person you've trusted for decades. Sometimes it sleeps beside you for 38 years. Sometimes it pours your morning coffee, then goes downstairs to check on the family member it has imprisoned. And sometimes the truth only comes out because a furnace breaks on the coldest day of the year.